Florida now into the controversial move by that state's Board of Education. Their new standards for teaching black history and slavery in middle school, planning to teach, quote, how slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris in Florida, her response to this new plan.
Tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris traveling to Florida to condemn the state's new education standards, which critics say water down the horrors of slavery.
They want to replace history with lies.
Under the new standards, middle school students will now be taught how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
Adults know what slavery really involved. It involved torture. How is it that anyone could suggest that in the midst of these atrocities, that there was any benefit to being subjected to this level of dehumanization? They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not have it.
The new guidelines, written to meet new standards, signed into law by Republican governor and presidential candidate Ron DeSantis. Without saying his name, the vice president accusing DeSantis of trying to create unnecessary, scary debates to divide our country.
People who walk around and want to be praised as leaders, who want to be talked about as American leaders, pushing propaganda on our children.
And Ron DeSantis has just responded, calling the vice president's criticisms ridiculous and outrageous. And he initially defended these new standards, calling them robust, thorough, and factual. But when pressed on students being taught that slaves may have benefited from the skills they developed, DeSantis was quick to distance himself, saying he wasn't involved with it.
All right, guys. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about a hot button topic that's in the news right now. And it's in regards to Ron DeSantis, Florida, their new bill that it was just passed on how schools and curriculum is going to be teaching African American history. Now, the hot button topic at hand is that one sentence that you kind of saw in the video about slaves learning skills that benefited them when they got out. And I think the problem is like slaves and benefit being in the same sentence kind of makes you go like, what are you talking about? How can you be benefiting if you're a slave? Yada, yada. And I do think indirectly by being in slavery, they did learn skills that I guess they could translate into something else after they got out of slavery. But the way that it's being promoted in these videos or articles, and especially with Kamala Harris coming out and talking about it, is quite interesting because they seem to be throwing all the blame on Ron DeSantis. And I don't know if it's more of like a smear campaign for, because he's running for the Republicans. But in this article, it goes on to say, which is something, as I mentioned, it's the leading black conservative organization condemns the new Florida education policy. It goes on to say they were forced to adapt and survive under extraordinary circumstances, showcasing remarkable resilience and resourcefulness. However, attributing their acquired skills as a benefit is an oversimplification and can obscure the true nature of their experiences. Slaves did not have agency. They were forced to do jobs without pay. This is not a benefit by any stretch of the imagination. Now, when I read that line, I just saw it as due to them being slaves, they did gain some skills later on that they could use to benefit themselves after they were done being slaves. Obviously, slavery is a terrible thing. I don't think anybody's pro-slavery. But the interesting part is that Kamala Harris, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, all these news organizations are attacking Ron DeSantis for this new curriculum policy. However, the AP curriculum touted by progressives also includes section on slaves learning skills. So this goes on to say, the 2023 AP African Studies curriculum released by the College Board, the body that oversees the SATs and advanced placement AP testing, argues that slaves learn specialized trades during bondage and parlayed these skills to provide for themselves and others once free. Okay? In Unit 2 of AP syllabus on slavery, labor, and American law, a chapter on the slave economy suggests that slaves learn to become painters, carpenters, tailors, musicians, and healers, and subsequently use these skills to provide for themselves and others. Now, Ron DeSantis didn't write this curriculum. This was curriculum that was created by the African American Studies group. And again, this is the one line that Kamala Harris and everybody else is freaking out about. Slaves develop skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit. The article then goes on to say, 2 members of the group responsible for developing the new curriculum recently told the National Review that they disagreed with Vice President's interpretation. The intention of it was African American slaves, my ancestors, they were resilient people. Valencia Robinson, a teacher of African American history and English, said slaves were forced to work sun up and sun down, but were in some cases able to capitalize on their newfound skills to gain some extra money. The other member goes on to say, William B. Allen, the former chairman of the U.S. Commission of Civil Rights, said the line refers to figures such as Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington who acquired skills under adverse circumstances or who came with skills that enabled them not to only survive adverse circumstances, but also to go on to further accomplishments. Now, with all that being said, yes, I agree. Obviously, I would say more slaves or freed slaves probably didn't benefit like some others did. But that's not to say that teaching that specific thing is trying to gaslight or erase what actually happened. It's actually teaching the history, and it's something that's developed by progressives and African Americans. Again, it's not like Ron DeSantis decided to write 191 pages on his own accord just to skew history or change it up. But hey, I think that learning about history, especially the atrocities that happened in history, is always beneficial to any group of people that are trying to learn and enhance themselves. But I don't think this smearing of another group or trying to spin what's being actually said or what was said is the way to go about handling any of this. But, I mean, as always, love to hear from you guys, so please let me know in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much. So if you liked that video and you want more content like that, check out this video, and as always, stay subscribed for other videos that I post. Thanks.